And then we'll give it just 30 seconds or so. I'll let you know when enough of the public has.
Okay.
Chair, it looks like a good number of the public has joined. You could go ahead and start.
Okay. Aloha and good morning. Thank you very much for your patience. We had weather and technical challenges this morning, so thank you very much for waiting for us to start. My name is Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser. I'm the chairperson of the Board of Agriculture. I'd like to call the board meeting to order this morning. Just want to do some housekeeping measures. As an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting unless you are providing testimony. For each agenda item you may wish to testify on, please click the raise hand button on your Zoom screen, which is at the bottom, almost at the middle of the screen. Board staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by me, the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute again after you are finished speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. When testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. And we have construction in our office, so I apologize. You might hear some exterior noise, like a drill. Okay, for those of you that are accessing this meeting by phone, upon dialing the number, you'll be prompted to enter the meeting ID. And after entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to enter your panelist number or wait to be admitted into the meeting. When I ask for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering pound and then 9 on your phone keypad. After entering pound and 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. And when recognized by me, the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing pound and 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you're finished speaking, please enter pound and 6 again to mute yourself. Okay, so I'd like to move to the second agenda item, which is the approval of minutes. But before I do that, I think I should do a roll call vote. We have board members participating virtually. So let's see. Okay, so do can I ask Diane Lay to let us know if she's present and whether she is alone or not?
Thank you, Chair. This is Diane Lay. I'm alone.
Thank you. Randy Cabral.
Yes, Chair, I'm alone. Thank you.
Okay. N. Young.
Present and alone.
Okay. Vince Mina.
Present and alone.
Suzanne Case.
Present and alone.
Mary Alice Evans.
Present and alone.
Okay. And interim dean Anya Wikorovic. Did I mess that up? Sorry, Anya.
Here and alone.
And also a new board member, James Gomes. James, you're muted.
Present and alone and lonely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so board members, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 28th meeting?
Is Fred Cowell still
Oh.
living there?
Sorry, Fred, I'm sorry. Fred Cowell,
I'm present and alone. Thank you.
yes, Kauai member. Thank you so much. Okay, board members, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our June 28th, 2020 meeting?
So
Move.
moved, Chair.
Okay, so I have a move by Mary Alice Evans, second by Fred Cowell. Okay, we're in discussion. Does any member from the public wish to comment on the meeting minutes from June 28th?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions, comments, edits? Oh, yes, James. Go ahead and unmute.
Chair, I'm not going to be voting on this approval because I was not on the board yet. So
Okay.
I will not be voting.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Any corrections, revisions? Seeing none. Okay. Okay. If not, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 approve the minutes, and anyone abstaining? Okay, I see Dean Anya and James Gomes, and there are no objections. So the minutes are approved. Next on the item is introductions. I'd like to ask the 2 new board members to introduce themselves and provide a brief greeting to the public. So representing C.F.R as the interim dean is Dr. Anya Rezorek. Okay.
Yeah, that was good enough, Chair. Aloha everyone. My name is Anya Wieczorek, and this is a crazy Polish last name. I have been here in Hawaii for 20 years as a member of C.F.R Ohana, and I have just been appointed as the interim Dean for College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. And in the last 20 years, I have been working with the ag community here in Hawaii. So it's nice to meet you all, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Anya. And then also James Gomes is the new member at large. Jimmy, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself?
Good morning, all. My name is Jimmy Gomes. I retired from Ulupalaku Ranch as an operations manager, but got rehired as a consultant to do a lot of the legislative side. My past is I've been on the board of Land and Natural Resources for 8 years. I termed out and then moved over to the ADC, Agribusiness Development Corporation, for a year, and then my predecessor, Joe Tanaka, that was at large, his term expired, and I got on the board of Ag. And I'm also the current president of Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, which is an umbrella for statewide of the 50th state. I'm also a director of the Hawaii Cattle Producers Co-op and various other small boards that pertains to our agriculture industry.
Thank you, Jimmy. Just wanted to acknowledge that Jimmy is joining us by phone because there are parts on Maui that don't have electricity or don't have internet connection. So that's why he is participating by phone until I guess his connection gets up. So you can let us know, Jimmy, when you think you can convert to the laptop. Okay. Okay, moving on, we're going to communications from divisions and administration. First up is Agricultural Loan Division. And Morris Atta, whose deputy is acting Ag Loan Administrator while we recruit for the position. Morris is joining us remotely. Okay, let's see. Morris, can you, are you able to turn on your video, your camera? I see you entered the room. And you're still muted. Oh, when you unmuted and now you're still muted. Can you try again, unmuting yourself?
Another tip you can do is you can just hold down the space bar.
Morris, you're still unmuted. Okay.
Chair, I think that if you are the one who set up the meeting, you can probably unmute him yourself, or your IT can.
Stephen, can you do that? Or Jason?
We can only request for security purposes. We can't fully unmute someone.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to, since Morris is having technical difficulty, Morris, I'm going to move to Ag Resource Management, and as soon as you're able to unmute, then I'll come back to you. So I'll take Ag Resource Management Division an item at a time, and then pivot back to you if you're able to speak. Okay? Okay. So Linda Murai, can we let Linda, we're gonna take out of order. We're gonna move on to the request for approval to award leases to various awardees and backup bidders. This is various TMKs in Kula, Keokea, and Makawao on the island of Maui. So Linda, can you also turn on your camera when you unmute?
Okay, here we go. Can
Okay.
you hear me okay, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, Chair, board members. My name is Linda Murai. I'm a property manager with the Agricultural Resource Management Division. And as Chair said, this is a request for approval to award leases to various awardees and backup bidder positions for various parcels at Keokea, Kula, Makawao on the island of Maui. The lease term that we're talking about is 35 years. The character of use of the leases is for pasture. Some background. The Agricultural Resource Management Division received the Kula Maui parcels from the Department of Land and Natural Resources via Governor's Executive Order number 4625, signed on March 6, 2020. In accordance with Hawaii revised statutes and Hawaii administrative rules, a public notice of public auction was published on April 9th, 2022, announcing the subject parcels available for lease by public auction. The division received a total of 6 applications for the vacant parcels, of which 4 applicants qualified to bid in accordance with Hawaii administrative rules. Staff determined that each applicant qualified as a bona fide farmer, rancher with more than 2 years of ranching experience and meets residency requirements of the non-agricultural parklands program. Exhibit A is attached and it lists the applicants, their status, and respective bids. Exhibit B is a map showing the locations of the various parcels. In addition to the highest bid awardees, staff identified backup bidder proposals. Recommendation is that the Board of Agriculture approve 1, the issuance of the appropriate right of entry document to the successful awardees for the lots, and subsequently issue the appropriate general leases subject to the completion of lease prerequisites. And 2, that the Board of Agriculture approve backup bidder proposals per lot as alternative awardees in the event the highest bidder awardees fail to complete the lease prerequisites. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the request for approval? I see Randy.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Move to approve for staff recommendation.
Okay, so it was moved by Randy Cabral. Jimmy, I'll take you as a second. Okay.
That's
By
fine.
James
Second.
Gomes. Okay, so we're in discussion. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to testify on this item of the agenda?
There appears to be no hands raised at this time.
Okay, board members, we're in discussion. Any board members have any questions, comments to make? I see Mary Alice Evans has her hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. I want to ask Linda, did the lots come over with existing tenants from DLNR? And if so, did those existing tenants, are they the highest bidders for the lots? And for those where there was competition, because I see that several lots had only one bidder.
Yes, Mary Alice, the lots came over vacant from DLNR, right? So there were no previous or existing lessees or permit holders.
Okay, thank you.
Vince, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Linda, so no water on these lots?
It's my understanding for the Department of Water Supply on Maui and from DLNR actually that there are existing meters. We're not quite sure how many are active and working, but it is up to the lessee to do their due diligence before they sign the lease and make sure or find out whether or not there's water to each of the parcels. But according to the Department of Water Supply and DLNR, some of the lots do have water meters.
And these are per year leases?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. The
And these
leases are
per
for,
year?
no, these are long-term leases that would be issued. The initial lease term would be 35 years.
But I mean, the costs that we're seeing on our paperwork, that's per year? They're paying for this?
Oh, the annual lease rent?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking? Yes, yes.
Yes.
That
Thank
is the annual lease rent. Yeah,
Thank you, Linda.
you're welcome.
And that's not per acre? It's per lot?
It's per lot per year.
Yeah, they're pasture leases, so our pasture leases have the lowest rate. Okay, anyone else has any questions, any comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. Okay, if not, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Okay,
Aye.
chair votes aye. We have a unanimous approval. Okay, thank
Chair?
you. Yes, Jimmy.
Chair, just for clarification, some of these lots in KOKO is completely, 100% covered with black wattle. I just wanted to specify that. So it's not like if you're thinking it's a pastoral land that's open and ready to graze, there will be a lot of work in order for it to be a grazable area.
Yes, thank you, Jimmy. Board members probably recall that the department gives them a right of entry for 6 months. Like Linda Murai said, they have a right of entry to do their due diligence, and they have 6 months to decide if they're going to sign the lease or not and proceed with the terms that are that were, you know, advertised or communicated, and then their physical, you know, inspection or review. Did you have anything more to add about that?
I'm sorry, Phyllis, was that for me?
Yeah, do you have anything more to add?
No, it's just that the right of entry for up to 6 months is for the due diligence, as you said. And if the awardee decides that they, for whatever reason, that they don't want to go forward to a long-term general lease, then they can cancel without penalty. So there's no penalty for cancellation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, thank you. I'm going to check if Stephen and Jason, do we still have Morris with us for the ag loan?
I believe we do have him now, if you
Okay.
can mute.
Okay, okay. Do you have access to a camera? Oh, yeah, we see you. Okay, 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 okay. So board members, we're going to go back to Agricultural Loan Division. Morris, go ahead and do the presentation. You're good, you're good. Thank you, Morris. Just for the record, Kauai is experiencing intermittent power failures. So I got a text message from board member Fred Cowell that he got disconnected and he's working to get his server back up. So a lot of challenges with power access today. Okay, let's see. All right, so board members, do I have a motion to approve this request? I see Anya has moved to approve and Diane second. Okay, we are in discussion. Is there any members from the public that wish to testify on this?
From the public, there appears to be no hands raised.
Okay, so I have questions from board members in this order: James Gomes, followed by Diane Lay, followed by Enya.
Okay, can I?
Go ahead,
am I ready
Jimmy.
to go?
You have the floor. Yes.
Okay, maybe give me a mop too then. Being that firsthand on Maui, and we've seen this deer, like, you know, I see it every week on the ranch when I'm on horseback, and you know, I see maybe a couple of thousand moving across since it's so dry, and we have no vegetation or anything on our Makai pastures. But we have a entity that's on the ranch called Maui Nui that's actively harvesting the deer, and some of it is for dog food, some is for human consumption. Byproducts are used that he sells, like the bones. He sells it, makes a broth, deer bone broth, and it seems to be taking off. So there is an economic advantage of selling the deer or working with the deer, because I don't think we can ever call it completely a 100%. So we need to cover it. I mean, we need to work with it. So one of the things that that I'm thinking of is, right now, say that we're harvesting the deer, and the deer, you know, to make what this loan is, or the governor's proclamation for the deer, it helps out the small guys, 5 acres, 30 acres. But what about the big landowners? You know, we just put in a 12-foot fence on 700 acres, and, you know, it ran about over 600,000. So it's very costly. So say if we put in more fences, yeah, and this money does not even cover the money that's available now, doesn't help us at all. It helps a smaller guy, which is fine. I'm not disputing that. But I wonder if we would need a law, or if the deer comes from on the main highway, comes down on a state highway or the county highway, and we get involved, or just a John Q. Public hits the deer, and then he comes after the landowner and says, hey, this is your deer. And then we're liable for that accident, or, you know, whatever happened. I wonder if there's a law that would protect private landowners, you know, not be liable for damages, because we can put all the fences you want, but you still have areas where it's a natural path of this deer will just come down the road, especially when it's dry, you know. So that's my deal. And, you know, if people go in and put in 6 feet fences, this generation of deer, 6 feet fences is like a high jump for them. They jump right over, or they go right through the center of the hog wire. And, you know, so again, you know, it's something that we need to look at, but I grant you the proclamation is needed, but it'll pretty much help the smaller people. And if you notice, if you're hunters and so forth, and if you're on state property, that heavy pressure that's put on these animals, whether it be a feral pig or whether it be a deer, they start to move over to large landowners, whether it be on Maui, Haleakala, Ka'ana'ulu, Olopalakua, you know, OW Ranch. Oprah has a lot of deer on her ranch, you know. So I just want to make that clear that, you know, this proclamation does not help the bigger boys, you know, and we're trying to fence the best we can. And also, like come in with this Maui Nui or other people so we can reap the benefits of this deal rather than fighting it completely. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Jimmy. Suggestions. Okay, I'll move on to Diane, then followed by N, and then Randy. You had your hand up, Randy. Did you have a hand up? I'll call you after N.
No, I didn't, Chair.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, so next is Diane, followed by N Young.
Thank you, Chair. Morris, I had a question about what the total dollar amount is available in the emergency fund, just so you kind of get an idea of.
So the additional 1 million, which was kind of like, a compromise because we couldn't get the legislature to approve establishing a permanent emergency loan fund program. It's only good for 1 year. So we have $1 million of supplemental funding for ag loan, and it's only good till the end of this fiscal year. Usually, the ag loan portfolio runs about little over 4 million to 5 million per year, based on repayments coming in, interest coming in, and the kind of loans that we give out. So anyway, because Governor did do the emergency proclamation, we decided that we wanted to get this initiated, and that way make the additional supplemental $1 million for us to give out emergency loans. So that's it. And so I think what Morris explained very well was that we still only have one pot of money. So regular, it's operational loan, land acquisition loan, new farmer loan, micro loans, and emergency. It's still just one pot of money, but we've taking advantage of the supplemental $1 million just to make sure that we can give the help that we did. I mean, we learned a lot through COVID, and we learned a lot through 2018. So board members that were on the board in 2018, we had to issue emergency loans for lava, flood, fire. I mean, and before 2018, there was a cell. So yeah, we have a need there. Okay.
So
I'll
follow up
go ahead.
on that just very quickly. So do we have any other emergencies on the books in terms of loans can be applied for besides the deer? I mean, I know we're in a drought, but I don't know if that's triggered with the DOA, the emergency loan program.
We are doing this because the additional $1 million, the legislation that passed, it requires a governor's emergency proclamation.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I had is on the uses of these loan funds. Can you describe that if you have economic losses from the deer, you know, can you get help paying bills or lease or living expenses? Thank you. It's an important action, so appreciate it.
N.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Morris, for answering some questions. You know, definitely seen it on Lanai. It's hard to control. Just a couple things on the terms. What was the rationale for waiving residency? Yeah. Okay, well, I definitely appreciate that from where I'm sitting. And then the second thing, you know, you talked about some case-by-case flexible terms. You know, I understand that, you know, as far as the eligibility period is concerned, you know, we're up in December. Are there limitations on the payback period as far as, you know, like 1 year, or, you know, does it run with the fiscal year, or can you guys kind of dictate terms in that way?
I can add that when we gave out emergency loans for lava and flood, we recognized that you know, people had to relocate, or they didn't. The farm was okay, but they didn't have access, and so what we did was we said, okay, you will pay interest only until you're able to get back into production. And so that was one of the things we did, is that we gave them the emergency loan, but I think we might have given them up to, like, you know, the time that they actually had their first harvest, or, you know, they were able to, you know, raise, you know, produce eggs, or, you know, something like that. But, you know, that's why we wanted to be as flexible as possible. They're not paying nothing during that time, but they are accumulating interests. And there were some existing farmers that were able to, you know, negotiate forbearance too. So. So we're looking for assisting them in recovery. We won't use emergency funds for them to build a new farm. It's for recovery purposes, yeah. And it depends on the information and the documentation that they provide when they apply for the loan. And the ag loan officer will, business loan officer will work together with the administrator to determine. That's why, it says case by case, because there's so much diversity in business models, even within the same commodity. We're very small. And then we have others that, are very medium to very large. So.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it. I mean, I think, from our standpoint, I think all of us on the board want to help you publicize as much as possible. So, that information helps us. And then, of course, we want to make sure it's fair. So that's kind of why I was asking. Okay, Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. And Jimmy, you had your hand raised. Jimmy, did you have another question or comment?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
My question is, can you tell Jason, our power came back on, and I'm trying to connect to, click here to join, but it says I can't. Maybe he can let me in if there's, I don't know what I need to do.
Oh,
I can
great.
get off the phone and get onto the click here, but I'm not sure. I just sent Gail an email.
Okay.
But I would like to get on.
Okay. So yeah, our IT staff heard you, so they'll send you the link to connect via Zoom.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm great that you got your power back. Okay, any board members, any other questions regarding the ag loan, emergency ag loan for Maui Nui? Okay, if not, then I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anya, okay. Did we get Fred back, or is Fred still trying to connect? I don't see him. Jason, do you see Fred Cole connected? Okay. Okay, so we have M. Young, Mary Alice, Chair Case, Dean, Anya, Randy, okay, Diane Lay, myself. Jimmy, are you still there? Okay, so we have,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
you
I'm
vote,
still here. I'm just
okay.
waiting to try to get on.
Okay, so you vote aye?
I vote aye, yes, that's correct. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
okay. So we have 9 in favor, and we have no opposition. Oh, there's Fred. Fred, do you vote to approve the emergency loan funding? Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous. Okay, so we have unanimous approval. Thank you, board members. Okay,
Chair,
thanks, Morris. Oh, yes, Mary Alice, you have to leave, right? Yeah.
I have to step out for a meeting with Budget and Finance on something, and I will step back in as soon as that's finished. Thank you. very
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for the record, Mary Alice Evans left at 10:01.
Urbania, can you say send Kristen here right away? Lexi has to go bathroom, and I am.
Anya, your mic is hot.
Oh my.
Okay. Okay, we're board members. We're going back to ag resource management. Item number 2, calling back Linda Murai. This is a request for acceptance for annual renewal of revocable permits for various TMKs and statewide. And part 2 is reservation and delegation to the chairperson the right and authority at any time to review and just the rental charges for any of the revocable permits. So Linda, you want to do the presentation?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Linda Marai here again. And as Chair stated, and I'm going to restate, this is a request. It's a two-part request. First is the acceptance for annual renewal of revocable permits for the various TMKs listed. And the second part is the reservation and delegation to the chairperson, the right and authority at any time to review and adjust the rental charges for any of the revocable permits. So some background: annually, staff reviews its list of current revocable permits issued statewide and determines which ones to recommend to the Board of Agriculture for renewal for the upcoming year. Generally, those revocable permits in good standing will be recommended for renewal unless the board has approved a different disposition for the land covered by the particular permit. Under remarks, the list of revocable permits statewide that staff recommends to be renewed for 2023 is attached as Exhibit A. Exhibit B includes location maps of the revocable permits. Staff recommends no rent increases for 2023 due to the economic downturn associated with the COVID pandemic. Recommendation is one, that the board approve the continuation of revocable permits listed in Exhibit A on a month-to-month basis, effective January 1, 2023, for 1 year period through December 31st, 2023, except for permits that are in arrears of rental payment for more than 60 days and or have been approved for forfeiture by separate board action. Permits in arrear of rental for 60 days or more and or approved by the board for forfeiture shall not be renewed. And 2, that the Board of Agriculture reserve and delegate to the chairperson the right and authority at any time to review and adjust rental rates for any of the revocable permits listed in Exhibit A anytime from and after January 1st, 2023, which where such adjustments will best serve the interests of the state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Okay, we can either take up the request as one vote for both parts, or we can vote on part 1 and part 2 separately. But first, what I'll do is I'll ask for a motion, and is there a motion so we can do discussion? Okay, I see Suzanne, you move? No?
No, I have a couple questions.
Okay, but we need to have a motion to move to discussion. So Diane, okay, you move. And Randy, you second. Okay, so then we're in discussion. Before I go to you, Suzanne, I will ask, is there any members from the public that wishes to testify on this?
There are no hands raised from the public.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're in discussion. We have Suzanne Case, followed by Randy Cabral, followed by Vince Mina. Okay, go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah,
Oh, and Jimmy Gomes, sorry, go ahead.
I have 2 questions. And the first, I sent this question earlier to staff this week, so I hope they've had a chance to review it. But my first question was, don't we need to have the names of the people to whom these revocable permits will be issued? Because this is a land disposition, and I think for notice purposes, we have enough information because we're talking about the parcels, but for an actual disposition, we as a board need to know who we are making a disposition to.
Okay, so yes, we received that question, and I think part of your question was whether we needed to check with our Deputy AG, and our Deputy AG advised us that it's not required. We could list the names, and because your question came yesterday, we didn't have enough time to get all the names and everything sent to the board members ahead of time. So moving forward, we can include the names in the submittal if the board so desires. We can read off the names. Can you mute if you're not speaking? Thanks. We can have Linda read off the names with the TMK now for the board's discussion, but Suzanne, the question came yesterday, and so we just didn't have, I wasn't comfortable that we could get the information to all the board members' attention in such short period of time. So Linda, do you want to read the names for the board members regarding the various TMKs?
Yes. You can go to Exhibit A and follow along by the RP number. So I'll just go from the top to the bottom. RP 26 is Waikele Farms Incorporated. RP 7889 is Kazuto Yamada. RP 5932 is Isaac Kanoa Jr. RP 7775 is Norman Madera Sr. RP 2001 is Stephen DeLuz. RP 3131 is George Olival. RP 7839 is Anita Ainsley and Nicole Liu. RP 7732 is George Freitas Dairy, Inc. RP 7317 is Helen B.H. Chu. RP 7045 is Shoichi Nagamine. RP 7794 is Francis P. and Laura Mission. RP 7321 is Scott J. Nonaka and Sherry T. Nonaka. RP 7738 is Mary Thronis Trust. RP 7771 is Thomas T. Takatsuke and Dennis T. Takatsuke. And the last one, RP 2102, is Michael Fernandez. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I do think it helps for public transparency and so that we have an actual disposition to somebody. So I appreciate that, and that's satisfactory. I'll hold my second question for later.
Okay. Okay. Brandy, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. Jerry. Linda, why are these revocable permits instead of long-term permits?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. The majority of these revocable permits did come over from DLNR per Act 90, and we have been focusing, the department ARM has been focusing on leasing our vacant lands because they pose more issues to the public. Whereas the RPs, they still have farmers on the land and caring for the land generally. And so as a result of focusing on the leasing of the vacant lots, we have put in second position the RPs, which will or should eventually be converted to long-term leases. Does that help?
Yeah.
Randy, I'd like to also add that for RP 26 Waikele Farms, the 150 acres, that is the location of the proposed Royal Kunia Ag Park. And the department has been going before the legislature for over a decade trying to get approval for infrastructure, water infrastructure, roads, subdivision, to get a new ag park going in Kunia, and we haven't been able to do that. So I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't converted into a long-term lease, that particular parcel, because that parcel is actually what the department wants to subdivide into 24 5-acre lots for new or small farmers, but we just haven't been able to get legislative approval for CIP. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Understood.
Yeah. Vince?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Linda, the RP 5932, that dates back to 1982. Was Isaac Kanoa part of this land back then? The use of this land, or?
Isaac Kanoa, yeah, it's a island of Maui. I can understand your interest. His RP was transferred to us by Act 90. And yes, they have been on that lease for that amount of time.
And it's in KNI?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so in essence then, until there's a long-term lease provided for this property, then, if I understand correctly.
In their future. The lot, this particular parcel is 1.1 acres, which is considered quite small for any farmer to farm on. And so this one is kind of unusual as well, because the 1.1 acres is adjacent to, and when it rains hard, it's in a stream. They are growing and harvesting the fern shoots. I'm sorry, I can't remember the proper name for that, but and that's why it's located near the stream. Is that too much information for you, Vince? Anyway.
Well, no, I understand, and
Yeah.
basically, yeah, they're wetland taro farmers in KNI.
Also.
And so it sounds to me as though it's a piece of the property, like you said, that the stream runs through. So they do supply the fern, and why I don't know it right off the top of my head.
It's called pohole.
Pohole, thank you, Jimmy.
That's it.
So they've been harvesting pohole off of that land. So this is good. I'm just concerned that I want to make sure that they have a stable use of that land.
That particular parcel, just for your information, it is landlocked, so it would pose some issues, but the Kanoas do own the adjacent fee simple land.
Right, great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, James Gomes, your hand is raised.
Yes.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, both questions that were asked was my question that I was going to ask. But to add to that, because we have RPs from 1982 in the 90s and the early 2000s, and you are looking at Act 90 that was implemented in 2003. What is your time frame to turn over these leases into long term? I know you just got it, but do you have any idea what kind of time frame that we could turn these RPs around to make it into long term?
Okay, so it will depend on I'm going to have to say on the number of vacant lots that come up and need to be released or leased, because we do get some vacant, although we haven't had very many from DLNR that come over, and some of our ag park lots, the lessees have left or been terminated or canceled, and priority, as I said, is to get those vacant lots leased as soon as possible, so that the homeless population and, you know, we don't run into the related activities from the homeless population and their overgrowth on the land, which makes it more difficult for a new lessee to come in and more expensive for a new lessee to come in and take over. But to answer your question, I can only say that we, as soon as possible, we would like to turn those RPs into long-term leases.
So Jimmy, this is Phyllis. I'll jump in. You know, the division is trying to recruit to fill positions. And so I think part of it also is our ability to attract qualified applicants for our property manager positions. So we have a couple of them that we're, you know, we're recruiting for. We had our challenges during the COVID outbreak and last year where we weren't able to, we didn't have funding, or, you know, there were restrictions on personnel. So now we're in a better fiscal environment as far as personnel funding is concerned. So they are going to be recruiting because, you know, we need more staff to manage more of the work, yeah, on the land management side.
But you know what? That's true. But we also have a problem retaining them because they go over to the private sector because it's much more advantageous for them to go. They make a lot more money. So how do we entertain the fact that we need to keep them here? Well, how do we offer a pay scale that, you know, that would be livable for them or make them stay? You know, that's the issue I see. People just jump over to private sector. They quit the state or the county and they go to private sector. But we need to somehow engage and try to keep them. You know, something's got to be done, hopefully.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Any other questions? Okay, Suzanne, you had, Jimmy, did you have any more questions before I move on to?
So I'm done. My questions have been answered already that came up before I spoke.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Suzanne?
Yeah, my other question has to do with the delegation. And I think I had a discussion before about, and I can't remember if it was in the context of the revocable permits. Maybe this was language included last time. Maybe Linda knows that answer, but it just, I'm a little puzzled by that language because it looks like there would be no board oversight of the rents that are charged, that there's a sort of a blank slate for the chair of ag, who I obviously respect, to make any decisions as to rent. And that seems to me to be a basic function for the board. So I'm just having questions about that, the delegation part.
Right, so, and the purpose of me putting it on the agenda is to have this discussion. So if the board does not want to delegate, then, you know, the board can decide not to do that and just approve the RPs. So just for transparency purposes, you know, I thought that staff thought maybe Brian Cowell can answer. I don't want to speak for him, but, you know, trying to get, you know, some measures or some actions that, you know, are that can expedite things. But if the board does not want to delegate, then someone can amend the motion, separate the two parts of the request and vote up or down. Anybody else had a question? Brian, I don't know if Brian Cowell or Linda, you wanted to comment why the division was requesting for the delegation?
I can only comment on Suzanne's question about delegation at a prior meeting. And you're right, there was a delegation of authority to the chair to approve certain things like improvements and extensions, lease extensions, but the rents were not included in that request. So, and as far as why it was added to this agenda, Phyllis, you mentioned that it would expedite the process of renewing RPs perhaps. And I can understand that because right now we are at the cost, right now we use an independent appraiser to determine RP rents. And every appraisal does cost money, and you know, it's really, the appraisal is just for that RP, which is short term and not a long-term instrument. So
if I
those
may,
are my comments.
I think you do have flexibility, or the board has flexibility on RP rents. And so and your AG can advise, but I think you can use other standards than appraisal. But I think it's more a matter of board oversight to have the board actually approve those.
So I see that Mary Alice rejoined us at 10:22, 10:23. So I want to acknowledge her. So if there's no other, oh, there's N. Okay, so did somebody wanted to amend the motion or any other more questions? I guess Linda just expressed, trying to minimize operational expense. The division is challenged this fiscal year with inadequate operational funds. Okay. And you had a hand raised.
No, just to the point, I think, I certainly don't want any discussion about authority holding up our approval of the RPs, and it would be my preference to split the motion.
Okay, so are you suggesting amendment to the motion?
Yeah, I would have to ask the maker of the motion. I forget who it was. But
I think it was Diane. Diane, did you make the motion?
Yes, I did, and
Okay.
I'm agreeable to splitting the motion.
Okay. Who was the second? Fred? No. Randy, you were the second, right? Okay, so you're okay with the amendment to split the motion into two parts?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we vote on the amended motion. So all of those in favor of the amended motion, raise your hands, say aye. Jimmy, have you been able to?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I
So there
wasn't
are,
able to get on. I don't know why.
oh, okay, all right. Okay, so there's 9 ayes. I vote with reservations, and it's just because, I understand the staff's concerns about the cost of the appraisals and expedition purposes, but motion passes, no abstentions, no approvals. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Alice?
Chair, I was going to abstain because I didn't hear the discussion on the amendment.
Oh, okay. So 8 approvals, 1 with reservations, and 1 abstention. Okay. I can't hear you, Brian. Okay. So I'll do a roll call vote. Diane Lay.
Okay, sorry, can I get a clarification? Are we just voting now to split the two, and then we're going to vote separately on the two?
Yes.
Okay.
We're voting on the amended motion. Okay, to take the part 1 and part 2 separately. Okay, so we're voting to amend the motion to vote for part 1 and part 2 separate. Okay, so I'm doing a roll call vote. Diane?
Aye.
Okay. Randy Cabral?
Aye.
I see your hand raised. Okay. Fred?
Aye.
Okay. N. Young?
Yes.
Okay. James Gomes?
Aye.
Okay. Vince
Aye.
Mina?
Aye.
Okay. Suzanne Case?
Aye.
Okay. And then Mary Alice, you abstain?
I abstain.
Okay. And then I vote with reservations. Okay. No abstentions besides Mary Alice, and no disapprovals. Okay. So now we're going to take up the 2 items separately. So the first we are voting on the request for acceptance for annual renewal of revocable permits, and the tax map keys are listed in the agenda statewide. So I'm calling for the vote for the request for acceptance of the annual renewal of the revocable permits. Staff is recommending no increase. Correct, Linda? Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote on this one too. Diane?
Aye.
Okay, Randy Cabral?
Aye.
Fred Call?
Aye.
N. Young?
Yes.
James Gomes?
Aye.
Okay, Vince Mina?
Aye.
Okay, Suzanne Case?
Aye.
Okay, Mary Alice?
Aye.
Okay, and I think I got everybody, and myself. I vote aye. Oh, Anya? Anya?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have a unanimous approval of part 1. Okay, the second part of the request is to for reservation and delegation to the chair the right and authority at any time to review and adjust the rental charges for any of the revocable permits. So I will do a roll call vote on this one. Diane Lay?
No.
Okay, Randy Cabral?
Aye.
Okay, Fred Call?
Aye.
N. Young?
No.
Okay, James Gomes? James?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Vince Mina?
Aye.
Okay, Suzanne Case?
No.
Okay, Mary Alice Evans?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, and chair votes aye. So there's 5 ayes. Oh, Anya, sorry.
I with reservation.
Okay, so there's 5 ayes, 1 with reservation, 1 abstention, and 4 noes. Did that sound right? Equal 10. 5 ayes, 1 aye with reservation, 1 abstention, and, oh, I'm sorry, 3 noes, right? 3 noes. Sorry about that. And I was using my fingers too. Sorry about that. Okay, so the part 2 passes. We have 6 ayes. Okay, moving on to number 3, request for approval for farm dwelling, lease, general lease number S6020. This is a lot in the Kahuku Ag Park, lot 20. I'm calling up Roy Hasegawa to do the presentation along with Linda Murai. Can you let Roy Hasegawa in?
He should be moving over.
Okay.
Chair, can I make a request before we start the next item, which would be that there be a process for, at least for the staff to report back to the board if there are rents set other than by appraisal, say.
Okay. Roy, okay, I see you, Roy. So we're on item B as in boy 3. You can proceed, Roy.
Good morning, Chairperson, members of the board. My name is Roy Hasegawa, Property Manager, Agriculture Resource Management Division, and I'll be presenting request for approval for farm dwelling, general lease number S6020. This is in the Kahuku Ag Park, lot 20. So background, Fung Sorvong acquired general lease number S6020 through public drawing in 1999 as husband of Kemsi Sorvong, tenant severity. Mr. Sorvong and his family have developed a lot into a successful farm that produces dragon fruit, banana, and bitter melon. There is an existing farm dwelling on the premises for which final building permits were obtained from the City and County of Honolulu in 2007. Corresponding information documenting the permits for this dwelling are in the lessee's files. Board approval has yet to be obtained, and the lessee is requesting after-the-fact board approval. Staff reviewed the construction plans and dwelling for suitability of the improvement for appropriate agriculture use and recommends after-the-fact approval pursuant to Section 4-153-32C Hawaii Administrative Rules and the lease provision paragraph 14 dwelling restrictions. The dwelling is occupied by the lessee's family to provide security for crops, supplies, and equipment on the premises. There have been numerous incidences of trespassing and theft of crops, farm tools, and equipment from the premises. Other lessees of the Kahuku Agricultural Park have reported similar incidences of the theft, vandalism, and illegal trespassing. The lessee is in compliance with the terms and conditions of general lease number S6020. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture approve after-the-fact approval for the farm dwelling on general lease number S6020. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mary Alice. Is there a second? Moved by
Second.
Anya. Oh, okay. Sorry, Jimmy. Anya raised her hand. Okay, thank you. We're in discussion. I'd like to ask, is there any member or members from the public that would like to testify on this item?
There are no hands raised by the public at this time.
Okay, thank you. So I have questions from Randy Cabral, followed by James Gomes, followed by Vince Mina. Okay, Randy, you can proceed.
Okay, just to clarify, the building permit was from 2007. This is 2022. So you guys weren't aware that a building was actually put up back in 2007?
Okay, excuse me. I can answer that. This is Linda Mariah again. In researching our files, back in February 9, 1989, the Board of Agriculture, there is a submittal where the board approved to delegate the chairperson to approve employee dwelling or personal dwelling. And it's my understanding that according to the minutes of the meeting back in 1989, the after discussion, the chair was permitted to approve employee dwellings, but not personal dwellings. And apparently moving forward, there may have been some confusion by staff about getting board approval for the personal dwelling. And so staff was aware of these dwellings, personal dwellings that the lessee lived in, but did not go to the board for approval because, you know, the chair was, they thought, would delegated the authority to approve it. And so now going forward after, you know, we've been reviewing our files and doing housekeeping basically, because so we found that the board did not approve actually this item and the next two items as well. They're all for the after the fact approval of the dwellings. So we're going back and doing housekeeping basically, and you know, dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and getting the after the fact board approval. So it was not that the board wasn't aware of these dwellings. It's just that administratively there was some confusion about whether the chair or the board should or could approve these dwellings. That answers your question, Randy?
It does, Linda. A related question though, how often do the land managers actually go out and do an inspection on these leases?
Okay, so we are typically it has been once a year, but we are increasing our inspections to twice a year for inspections. And they do take quite a bit of time, so it would be good if we had more property managers, but we are keeping up with that goal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the questions, Randy. James Gomes, followed by Vince Mina, followed by Mary Alice Evans.
Question I have is, as it said that they reviewed it in 2007, what kind of square footage is this homes, or you know, the residence that they have? And if they remodeled now, how much bigger has it come? And are they built to code rather than somebody just making a lean-to and put a tent or something, you know, of that nature? That's my
Right.
question.
Okay, I understand. So this request, the dwelling is 1,350 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath dwelling, and it has not, according to what we see, you know, through inspections and looking at the construction plans, they've not been renovated to be larger. And these three after the fact approvals, the structures are permitted, and so the Department of Planning and Permitting has approved these structures. Did I miss a part of your question? Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. You answered. And when your land manager goes out to inspect these facilities or these residents or buildings, what condition are they in? Are they termite ridden, or they're you know, are they in good shape? I mean, as far as the landowner or the leasee, does he have good housekeeping and he keeps up the upkeep of the building?
Right. Well, that's one of the jobs, or you know, that the requirements of the inspection is to look at the improvements. These three are in good condition. If we see as a property manager that the structure becomes, you know, in disrepair and needs repairs and painting, then we do note it in our files and tell the lessee. And also by the lease, they are required to maintain any improvements on their lease premises. And I'm going to say these are all farmers that we're dealing with. Thank you.
My last question, Linda. My last question is, in the future, when this comes before the board, I understand wholeheartedly of what you're saying, but could we have colored pictures of the building, or whatever we're talking about, some colored pictures? It would be nice to just take a look and look what's around, what the housekeeping is as far as foliage or the building shape. That'll be nice. Thank you.
Okay. And that's for after the fact approvals, because if lessee, right? Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, James. Vince, followed by Mary Alice.
Thank you, Chair. Linda, this ag park, what is the security measures if this has been a systemic issue as far as people getting ripped off, crops getting ripped off, and it says it's a successful farm or successful farm that produces dragon fruit, banana, and bitter melon. On the 9 acres, how much is that actual production?
I'm gonna have to defer to Roy for that question.
Roy, do you have that information?
Dragon fruit, about 40 to 50% of the farm area is dragon fruit. It's all up in the front. The back is they change between eggplant, bitter melon, squash, depending on what's selling.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And so, what is the security?
So the secure, yeah, I understand. So the security for Kuku Ag Park, there is a gate at the front entrance, and it is the responsibility of the farmers at the egg park to monitor the gate, make sure it's closed whenever they come and go, or if any of their contractors or workers, the gate is supposed to be closed. But I would say 100% of the farmers that I talk to unfortunately have experienced theft and burglary, not only of their tools, but their equipment. Their ATVs have been stolen, their crops have been stolen, and it's just, unfortunately, it's very, very difficult for the farmers.
Yeah, right. And so that's why, as far as having a physical presence on the, I mean, I'm of the ilk that every farmer should live on his land and be able to, secure his own, especially in today's Dodge City type of mentality out there with agriculture and people, just ripping people off left and right. So thank you, Linda. I appreciate it. Thanks, Roy.
Thank you for those comments. It's unfortunate.
Mary Alice, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do. The first one is the Kuku Ag Park the only ag park that allows for farm dwellings, farm employee dwellings, or is it that? I was under the impression that other ag parks did not allow farm dwellings.
Well, typically a farm dwelling, the board must approve any farm dwelling. Some of the leases, the older leases, do allow one farm dwelling, but subject to board approval. So the board must approve any and all farm dwellings and improvements on the premises.
Okay, thank you, Linda. My second question is, do you happen to know where the term personal residence comes from? Because in Chapter 205, which governs the Ag District, there is no definition of personal residence in the Ag District. It's only farm dwellings and employee farm dwellings.
I'll take that question, Mary Alice.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead if you had more to.
No, that was my question.
Okay. So what Linda reported, staff went and searched their records, and they went back into the 1990s. So I think it was 1998.
Actually, 1989.
1989. Okay. Yeah. So they went back that far, and what she said, when she referred to personal dwellings, that was the actual language in the motion that was on the agenda. So the board did not define personal dwellings during the discussion, but on the agenda, it used the language personal dwellings, not farm dwelling. It said personal dwellings and employee dwellings. So that's why Linda reported what was actually in our archives for that particular board meeting.
Does the department still make a distinction between a farm dwelling and a personal dwelling? Or is that that's a historical reference?
Today, presently, if I can speak, presently we interpret farm dwelling to be where the lessee and their family reside.
Mm-hmm.
And employee dwelling is, as it says, it's for employees, yes. So personal, that's the first time I've seen the term personal dwelling. And, you know, over time, terminology does change.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what happened there.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Chair. That's helpful. I might comment that there's quite a fierce debate over the use of farm dwellings in the ag districts. So this is a broader discussion than just, you know, the department's ag parks. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Mary Alice. So noted. Okay, any other questions, comments, discussion on item 3 for general lease S-6020? Okay, if not, I'm gonna call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Okay.
Aye.
Okay. So I have a unanimous approval for after the fact approval for the farm dwelling on lease S-6020. Okay, so board members, does anybody need a break or should we finish up items 4, 5, and 6? Okay. Okay, we're proceeding. So moving on. Item number 4, request for approval for farm dwelling general lease S-6021. Again, Roy Hasegawa will do the presentation along with Linda Murai.
Okay,
Go ahead, Roy.
Thank you. Next presentation, request for approval for farm dwelling, general lease number S-6021. Lessee is High Cocoa Farms LLC, and this is lot 21 in the Kahuku Agricultural Park. John Amphone acquired general lease number S-6021 through public drawing in 1999. In 2015, the Board of Agriculture consented to the assignment of general lease 6021 from John Amphone to himself and his sons. In 2017, the board consented the assignment of general lease number S-6021 to High Cocoa Farms LLC, which is wholly owned by Charles Chrisman. Mr. Chrisman grows cacao on the subject lot for production and marketing of chocolates. There's an existing farm dwelling on the premises for which final building permits were obtained from the City and County of Honolulu in 2007. Corresponding information documenting the permits for this dwelling are in the lessee's files. Board approval has yet to be obtained, and the lessee is requesting after the fact board approval. Staff reviewed the construction plans and dwelling for suitability of the improvement for appropriate agriculture use and recommends after the fact approval. The dwelling will be occupied by the lessee's family to provide security for crops, supplies, and equipment on the premises. The lessee is in compliance with the terms and conditions of general lease number S-6021. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture approve the after-the-fact approval of the farm dwelling on the premises. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Members, do I have a motion to approve this request? Mary Alice, your hands raised. Okay, moved by Mary Alice. Is there a second? Second by James Gomes. Okay, thank you. We're in discussion. Anybody from the public wishing to testify on this item?
There are no hands raised in the public.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions? Like previously stated by Linda Marai, this lease and the following item on the agenda are kind of a similar situation for the after the fact. I know that Linda can, Linda or Roy, can you give the square footage for this this dwelling?
This one was 1,350 square feet.
Okay, and condition of the dwelling from your inspections?
Well maintained.
Okay, I guess any
Excuse me, what did you say the square footage was, please?
1,350 square feet.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was 5,000. Right, thanks.
no. Okay, and is it how many bedrooms, Roy?
2 bedrooms.
Baths. Okay,
baths.
similar. Okay. Okay. Members, any questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Okay, we have 10 approvals, unanimous consent. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, request for approval for farm dwelling, lease number S6024, Kahuku Ag Park again, Roy and Linda. Proceed.
Okay, thank you. My last presentation, request for approval for farm dwelling, journal lease number S6024. Lessee is Kampu Kutong. This is for lot 24 in the Kahuku Agricultural Park. General lease number S6024 was originally awarded to Douglas Anamizu and Kara Anamizu in 1999 by way of public drawing. In 2009, the Board of Agriculture consented to the assignment of General Lease 6024 to Pong Sorivong. And in 2019, the lease was assigned to Mr. Sorivong's nephew, Kampu Kutong. Mr. Kutong and his family developed the lot into a successful farm that produces taro, cucumbers, papayas, coconut, and banana. There is an existing farm dwelling on the premises for which final building permits were obtained from the City and County of Honolulu in 2014. Corresponding information documenting the permits for this dwelling are in the lessee's file. Board approval has yet to be obtained, and the lessee is requesting after the fact board approval. The lessee is in compliance with the terms and conditions of the lease, and staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture requests after the fact approval for the farm dwelling on lot 24. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, do I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Moved by Mary Alice.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by James Gomes.
Second.
Thank you, James. Okay, we're in discussion. Any members from the public wishing to testify on this item?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, so I see Randy Cabral followed by Vince Mina have questions. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to ask, as part of the lease, is it required that the lessee maintain the structure in good working condition through the life of the lease?
Yes, the answer to that question, Randy, is yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Randy. Vince, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, Linda, with the lease, if they want to go ahead and make any kind of an addition or improvements in that respect, once this is passed, they have to go through the city and county as far as all the lease.
Well, they do have to get board approval for any
Okay.
type of major renovation, yes.
Okay, so it has to get board approval first. Okay,
Yes, yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, just wanted to, because sometimes when these things pass, then all of a sudden it goes under the radar, so I just wanted to
No, that's why we do the inspections to look,
twice a
look
year.
for any changes.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Fred, you had a question? Oh, you're muted, Fred.
Looking at the location of the 3 lots, it seems that they're all literally right up and down one street. Did we just discover houses in the park at once, or I may have missed how these 3 came up together?
Oh, okay. Just to go back a bit, the houses, we staff were doing housekeeping, checking files and all of that, and for improvements, with regard to improvements, and found that these 3 houses had not been approved by the board, but there was a board submittal from February 9th back in 1989 that delegated the authority to approve employee dwellings and personal dwellings is the term they used back in 1989. And apparently that was on the main submittal, but after looking at the meeting minutes for this particular meeting in 1989, it was discovered that the chair was delegated the authority to approve employee dwellings only, and not the personal dwelling or what we call the farm dwelling now. And so we are here before the board doing housekeeping and just making sure that the board approval is in the file for these dwellings. But we were aware of the dwellings, and they are permitted by the Department of Planning and Permitting. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
It's us or the staff doing cleanup and finding things and trying to make it right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Fred, for those comments. Yeah, and the square footage for this dwelling is 1,404 square feet, according to Roy. And Roy, how many bedrooms? Similar?
3 bedroom, 2 bath.
2 bath. Okay, so slightly bigger. And condition of the dwelling?
It's well maintained.
Well maintained. Okay. Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Okay. I see 10 ayes. Unanimous consent. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so we move on to request for approval for sublease between Hamakua Ag Cooperative and Hamakua Landscaping LLC. I'd like to call up Brandy Ayo from Hawaii Island. Good morning. Proceed, Brandy. Go ahead. Okay, thank you, Brandy. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Diane Lay. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Second by Fred Cowell. We're in discussion. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify on this item?
There are no hands raised in the public.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Mary Alice, we're in discussion. You have your hand raised for a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Brandy, the master lease between Department of Agriculture and Hamakua Cooperative, does that allow for farm dwellings on the subleased properties for this particular? No. So it's not an issue. What about agricultural theft and damage? Is this ag park experiencing the same kinds of theft and damage that the Kahuku Ag Park has, to your knowledge? Okay. When the master lease comes up for releasing, does the department have a policy about whether that master lease could be revised to include or to allow for farm dwellings or not?
Linda, right. We'll have Linda or even Brian Cow. Hamakua Cooperative and this ag park, was a little different. It was created for displaced sugar workers because of the bankruptcy. Linda. Oh, Brian, there you are, Brian Cow. Okay.
Hi, Mary Alice. Thanks for the question. The Hamakua Ag Park is a very, very unique ag park that the department has. It's the only ag park that we have that we serve as essentially a master over. The reason is the parcels were initially subdivided due to zoning as Ag 40. And the county zoning is only one house per Tmk. So who do you decide who gets it? That's the issue out there.
Okay.
So we have asked in the past or considered asking to get a exemption to subdivide down, but that doesn't necessarily address the A40 issue.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Brian. Yes, that explains a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Diane, you had your hand up. You had a question?
No need. I was just going to share what Brian covered already.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad we have you on the board. Diane knows a lot about the Hamakua Ag Park and the co-op. Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor approve, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. We have unanimous approval. Motion carries. Members, before we go on to the last item, I'd like to have a 10-minute break. We've been at it for not 2 years, 2 hours. Okay, so we'll be back at 11:17. 11:17. Okay. Thank you. We're in recess. Okay, it is 11:17. Board members, if you're there, can you turn on your video? Thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm waiting for N and Vince. If they can turn their cameras on so I know that they're here. So I see Fred, Mary Alice, Diane, Anya, Randy, Suzanne, and okay, we're just waiting for Vince. Okay, Jimmy, are you there, Jimmy? Jimmy, if you're there, can you unmute so I know you're back from the recess? Okay, well, I'm gonna.
I'm here, Chair. Jimmy.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. It's 11:18. Board members, we are on item 7, status update, discussion, and decision-making on delegation of authority to the chairperson to assert rights and enforce claims arising out of a related to general lease S66010 between the state of Hawaii and its Board of Agriculture and of the ICAVA LLC. I'd like a motion to go into executive session to consult with our attorneys regarding this item of the agenda. Do I have a motion to go to an executive session?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Fred. Do I have a second? Second by Anya. Okay, so board members, if you can exit Zoom and jump to Teams for executive session. Stephen and Jason, could you assist James Gomes because he's calling in? Does he, can you assist him with doing it by phone, please? Okay, I'll see everyone in executive session. Thank you.
Mr. Gomes, on the
Yeah,
Teams,
Jason, I'm on that, I'm on my computer. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
I'm on my computer and it says you're not connected, for the link to go into executive session.
Yeah, maybe your internet is not back up there on Maui. You'll
Maybe
probably,
because I can't even get into the board meeting to visually look at it. I mean, the computer's on, but I can't join in. I don't know.
yeah,
Well,
it's
there's no
probably,
internet. I was just told.
yes. What you'll probably have to do is you'll probably have to hang up your phone here to leave this meeting and then dial into the Teams meeting, kind of in the same way that you dialed in to the Zoom one. The number should be in the Teams meeting invite.
The number should be where?
And the Teams meeting invite, you'd have to look on your phone. I don't know if your computer would have it.
Can you guys give me that number or whatever? Okay. Okay, good, noted. This is totally different. We're in executive session. Okay.
Give me just one moment and I'll work with Jason. And just a reminder that us talking right here, the public can hear still.
So Jason, if I get back out of executive session, I have to dial that number again that I had this morning.
Yes, exactly.
Do the same thing to get back in if I get off to get into executive session. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Stephen, but I am reaching out to Jason as well. Yes, to send it to both of you. Mr. Gomes, if you could actually hang up your phone call from here, and I'll give you a call and I'll walk you through how you'll be able to connect.
Okay, all right, I will. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are you there?
Yes, I heard you. You can hang up your phone from this call. Hey there, Mr. Gomes. Hey there, Mr. Gomes. Yeah, so sorry. It's yeah, I grew up in Arizona, but so what's hard is the teams, it didn't have a phone number this time when we set it up. So we'll have to have you, do you have the Teams app on your phone? Or if not, let me see. I thought from Teams I sent you an invite. Okay, if you go to your email on your phone, yes, I'm here.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Okay. Just waiting for all right. I thought I saw board member James Gomes via phone. Stephen, Jason, do we
He
have
was
James
here.
Gomes?
Oops, sorry, he was here just a moment ago. He must
Yeah,
be-
yeah, he was.
Hey,
It was-
Chair, your 2-year meeting may become prophetic after today's.
He's calling in. According to Gail, he's calling in. So we'll just wait until he gets in. Oh, I think I see him. Okay, we have Anya.
I'm back in the meeting, Chair.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so members, we are on item B7. I'd like to ask for a motion. Yes, Mary Alice?
Chair, I move to approve the delegation of authority to the chairperson of the Department of Agriculture, Board of Agriculture to assert rights and enforce claims arising out of or related to general lease number S-6010 between the state of Hawaii by its Board of Agriculture and Ali'i Kava LLC covering lot number 10 of the Kahuku Agricultural Park, TMK number 15606, partial 038.
Okay, thank you, Mary Alice. Do I have a second? Second by Chair Case. Okay, we're in discussion. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment?
There are no hands raised from the public.
Okay, so I see board member James Gomes has his hand raised. Jimmy, you're muted.
I'm going to recuse myself because I wasn't part of the executive session. I couldn't get online through my
Yeah,
phone.
I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you, James. Okay, okay. So members, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, I have 9 ayes. We have 1 abstention from James Gomes and no disapprovals. Okay, so motion carries. Thank you. Now we move on to plant industry. Like to call Chris Kishimoto forward to do the presentation regarding the unlisted beetle for future placement on the list of restricted animals, Part A. And also this request has 6 parts to it. Okay, there's Chris.
Good morning, Chairperson and members of the board. Yeah, this is a rather long title. But my name is Chris Kishimoto. I'm with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture's Plant Quarantine Branch, and I'm here today to present a request to, number 1, preliminarily review the currently unlisted beetle, C.F.R. uberabensis, for future placement on the list of restricted animals Part A as a biological control agent of Tibouchina herbaceae and other related species in the family Melastomataceae by the United States Department of Agriculture's Forest Service. Number 2, to determine if the release of C.F.R. uberabensis as a biocontrol agent of Tibouchina herbaceae and other related weed species in the family Melastomataceae by USDA's Forest Service poses no significant impact on the environment. Number 3, provided that C.F.R. uberabensis is placed on the list of restricted animals Part A to allow for its release from laboratory quarantine by permit for biocontrol of Tibouchina herbaceae and other related weed species by USDA's Forest Service. Number 4, provided that C.F.R. uberabensis is placed on the list of restricted animals Part A to allow its import and release by permit for biocontrol of Tibouchina herbaceae and other related weed species by the USDA's Forest Service. Number 5, provided that C.F.R. uberabensis is placed on the list of restricted animals Part A, establish permit conditions for the import and release of C.F.R. as a biocontrol agent for Tibouchina herbaceae and other related weed species by USDA's Forest Service. And number 6, provided that C.F.R. uberabensis is placed on the list of restricted animals Part A, to authorize a chairperson to schedule a public hearing and appoint a hearing officer in connection with the proposed amendments to Chapter 4-71 Hawaii Administrative Rules. The applicant and the importer in this case is going to be Dr. Matthew Tracy Johnson of the USDA's Forest Service at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park's quarantine facility at the Kilauea Research Station in Volcano, Hawaii. Dr. Johnson is requesting that the board place C.F.R. uberabensis on the list of restricted animals Part A for import and release for biological control of Tibouchina herbaceae and other related weed species. C.F.R. uberabensis was originally brought into Hawaii Volcanoes National Park quarantine facility from Brazil in July of 2005 for biocontrol research and host range testing. In January of 2020, a draft environmental assessment was submitted to the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development's Environmental Review Program with the anticipated finding of no significant impact. That draft was published in the environmental notice on January 23rd, 2020. Initial quarantine will be at the USDA Forest Service Hawaii Volcanoes National Park quarantine facility in Kilauea, the Kilauea Research Station in Volcano, Hawaii. Roughly 30 beetles at a time will be removed from quarantine as newly pupated adults. Adults will be used to establish colonies reared in petri dishes at USDA and the Hawaii Department of Agriculture insectaries in Volcano, Hilo, and Honolulu. Offspring from rearing colonies will be used for environmental releases at selected locations statewide. This request was submitted to the Advisory Subcommittee on Entomology for its review and recommendations. The Advisory Subcommittee recommendations are as follows. Whether or not to recommend approval for future placement of C.F.R. uberabensis on the list of restricted animals Part A as a biocontrol agent for Tibouchina herbaceae and other related weed species. All 5 responding subcommittee members recommended approval. On whether or not to agree that the release of C.F.R. uberabensis as a biocontrol agent for Tibouchina and related weed species by USDA's Forest Service poses no significant negative impact on the environment. All 5 responding subcommittee members agreed that it would pose no significant negative impacts to the environment. Provided that C.F.R. uberabensis is placed on the list of restricted animals Part A, on whether or not to recommend approval to allow the import and release of C.F.R. by permit for biocontrol of Tibouchina by USDA's Forest Service. All 5 responding subcommittee members recommended approval. And for providing that C.F.R. uberabensis is placed on the list of restricted animals Part A, whether or not to recommend approval to establish permit conditions for the import and release of C.F.R. as a biocontrol agent for Tibouchina herbaceae All 5 responding subcommittee members also recommended approval for this. This request was also submitted to the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals at their meeting held on May 20th, 2022. At this meeting, there were 5 votes to approve this submittal, or to recommend approval of this submittal, with 1 abstention. And this and based on the recommendations and comments of the Advisory Subcommittee on Entomology and the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals, the Plant Quarantine Branch also recommends approval with the proposed permit conditions, which are attached. Thank you.
Chris, that was a good job of summarizing it. Okay, members, do I have a motion to approve all 6?
Chair,
Yes.
prior to the motion, may I disclose that I am the Director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, but that the acceptance of an environmental assessment for publication is a ministerial action, not a discretionary action, and I therefore believe I can participate and vote without any conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you for that disclosure, Mary Alice. I hear that James Gomes moved to approve. Is there a second? Second by Anya. Okay, we're in discussion. Is there anyone from the public that wish to testify?
There are no hands raised from the public.
Members, we're in discussion. Do you have any questions for Chris Kishimoto or comments? James Gomes has his hand raised. Jimmy, do you have a question? You're muted.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've had lengthy discussions with Darcy, and he's answered a lot of my questions, but there's one part of this advisory review. I see Dr. Francis Howarth, no response. Is there any reason why he has no response? Everyone else agrees and they've had comments except this gentleman.
Yeah, when we sent him this submittal for him to review, he just he just didn't give us any responses altogether. It wasn't like he reviewed. It wasn't like he got back to us and said that he didn't have an opinion one way or another. It's just he didn't respond at all in this case.
Did you follow up with him or besides waiting for his response?
No, we did not. A lot of times it's kind of difficult to get him to respond. So we usually don't follow up too much with him. We will with other subcommittee members though.
So why keep him on an advisory committee if he doesn't give any feedback? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Yeah. No worries. He's a really respected entomologist, and his responses, his opinions and recommendations, they tend to hold a lot of weight with us. So we keep him on, but and I think Darcy is also able to get in touch with him at some, once in a while, not always. So I think it's still good for us to have him on. Although, if he desires to retire from the subcommittee, he can let us know.
Okay. So I have one more real quick question.
Sure.
And this regards, okay, we're going to go after the Myconia, but it's also related weeds. What are some of the related weeds that this would affect? Do you know what they are?
Yeah, so this is going to be actually for Tibuchina herbaceae. So there's,
okay.
Yeah, they're related. They're in the same family as Myconia, but this is going to go after probably about 4 other species. It's going to be Tibuchina, Melastoma, and Pterolepis. But all of them are considered pretty bad weeds in Hawaii.
Unless they have pictures, other than that, it's all Greek. It's like you're talking broccoli and cauliflower.
I believe there might be some pictures in the draft environmental assessment.
Yeah, I've seen some of that in the environmental assessment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jimmy. Followed by Vince, N, and Suzanne. Vince?
Hi, Chris. Thank you, Chris, for your presentation. Chris, nature, there's a prey-predator relationship, and I was wondering if it was anything that surfaced in Brazil that would be considered a predator of this beetle.
I'm sure there is predation of this beetle naturally occurring in nature in Brazil. But that's one of the reasons why they're going to bring it into quarantine when they do import, is so they can observe and make sure that there's no parasites or parasitoids. I don't think you have to worry too much about predators, because you'd probably be able to see something that would be able to eat the beetle. But we're primarily worried about diseases, parasitoids, and parasites, and that's why these beetles would come into quarantine.
And what is the lifespan on these beetles?
That I'm not sure of off the top of my head. If Dr. Johnson is here, he might be able to give you some information on that.
Yeah, I was mainly concerned with if all of a sudden these beetles run amok, then what predator could be out there to mitigate that?
I think these beetles have been shown in host range testing to be very specific to the weeds that were mentioned. I don't think that there would be too many things that would prey on these beetles here in Hawaii, but all information points to, like, you would like these things to rapidly increase in population size, so they could attack more of these weeds.
I would like to announce that I've brought in Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, if you could please state your name and organization.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name's Matthew Tracy Johnson. I'm a research entomologist with the USDA Forest Service based on the Big Island.
So, Dr. Johnson, what is the lifespan of these beetles?
The whole life cycle runs about 6 to 8 weeks. The adults can live longer. Adults may live up to, I think, 3 months, maybe.
So these weeds that they're looking to take out, so they'll die. Beetles don't have any more food source, say. There's a lot of seeds in the ground. So we're going to have to be re-inoculating the environment with these beetles over and over again?
No, we don't expect that. So what generally happens is the insects, they don't have that dramatic an impact where they mow the plants down to nothing immediately. So it's going to take generations, multiple generations of the beetle to have a really strong impact on any particular plants. Unless the plants are like individual plants are really small. And then there's also the issue of the beetles finding the plants, so they have to move around. So there's never going to be a dynamic where the plants are suddenly gone and the beetles have nothing and the beetles die, or the beetles have to survive by eating something else. So yeah, it's a lot more gradual and persistent than that.
Okay, thank you. But there is an opportunity for the beetles to turn their attention to some other plants. I mean, I've read where Mr. Matsui's comments about the Katapa plant, and there was supposedly some put in a tank, and the beetles kind of chewed on it, but didn't really like it, because there's nothing else there for them. I just, there's a whole thing a whole thesis was done about insects eating plants, and the plants expressing themselves as an incomplete protein would lend itself more towards infestation as opposed to plants expressing themselves as a complete protein. Is there any information on that you have that will quantify that?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the particular research you're talking about.
Yeah,
That-
Francis Chaboso out of Brazil and France did a thesis, a 50-year thesis on this. And so I just, you know, as a farmer, I'm just always concerned about things being released that will affect our crops. You know, great intention, great consideration to bring something in that could actually focus in on what we're calling a weed here. I mean, it's basically a plant that doesn't belong where it's at. But you know, there's general vitalities of plants in certain environmental conditions, kind of raise up or drop down, you know, considering the environmental conditions. So if the general vitality of that plant is raised up by being in the big island on the lava like that, then there must be something that can take the general vitality away without being toxic. And I'm just wondering if is there any other avenues that were sought out besides spraying poison?
Okay, well, I mean, this proposal is not for poison. It's for a
No, I
natural.
understand. Yeah, I understand. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying I saw where there was at one point there was spraying being done for these plants, and then it went on to, you know, to bring these beetles in. So I'm just wondering if there's any other avenues that are being explored.
Yeah, I mean, within our field, we've examined other natural enemies, and this particular natural enemy is the one that has been chosen because it has a large impact, potentially large impact, by feeding on the vegetation and eliminating the leaves, and fewer other issues with potential natural enemies. For these particular weeds in general, they're not typically managed very much in Hawaii, just because it's so hard to manage them. So there's not a lot of herbicide, I don't think, being used actively against most of these weeds. The exception would be in cases where they're trying to eradicate Tibouchina herbacea, which is still in fairly small areas that we know about on Oahu. But in general, there's not large volumes of herbicide being used currently on these, just because they're so widespread.
Are you familiar with a study that was done called Weeds Why? And basically where they took the soil analysis and found that the general vitality of a particular weed was either through an excess of an element or a deficiency of an element. Are you familiar at all with that kind of work?
I'm not familiar with that particular study, but yeah, I am. There are various hypotheses about weeds, why weeds become weeds, and one clear explanation that definitely has some good support for it is their escape from natural enemies, and that's why we do biological control, because at least sometimes it works really well. There is a possibility that this beetle won't have enough impact that it really suppresses these weeds.
Okay.
Thanks for the body of the work. Appreciate your answers too.
Okay. Thanks, Vince. Moving on to N, followed by Suzanne.
Thanks, gang, for all this work. It was voluminous, to be sure. But just a couple of process questions. I saw that Darcy had some issues with, you know, just the way some of the permits were worded. Was that ameliorated in the submission to the board?
It's in the submittal. I didn't read it because I was just trying to summarize everything, but
Yeah, of course.
yeah, but it was addressed.
Okay, yeah. That's so I was asking this. I'm just not aware of like what version we're on and that kind of stuff. And then the other piece was the FONSI, the finding of no significant impact. That's forthcoming, but has not been completed yet. Is that correct?
I believe it's like we haven't issued anything, but there's a comment period when things go into the environmental assessment and stuff for review.
Yeah.
And the time period has already lapsed for that, and I don't believe that there were any issues.
Okay, so we expect that to come out as a FONSI then, basically.
Yes.
Okay, and then Chair, just from a process standpoint, we're okay with issuing or voting on this before the other paperwork is in.
Is there any particular part of the request? Because first thing is to get it listed. Okay, and Chris, is there any concern of 1 through 6 where it would be premature or precede getting the information, from the FONSI information that concerns Board Member Young?
I don't quite know what you're asking, but I don't. There should be no issues with any of the items 1 through 6. Would be nice to have the actual FONSI, but I think that can be issued prior to Dr. Johnson getting his permit.
Okay. No, I mean, I guess to kind of squash down the question is just, does the FONSI act as a legal prerequisite for any of the things that we're asking for in this submittal? Any of those 6 items?
I believe it does. So, we definitely have to get the FONSI before we issue the permit, but I don't see any problems in getting the FONSI.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my question. Can we vote on this before that's issued? Just strictly from a process standpoint.
I think to follow up on that question, if for some reason it's low probability that we don't get the FONSI, then would the approval be moot?
Yeah, we just wouldn't issue the permit.
Okay. Is that by rule, or is it just an internal process?
I think for us it's an internal process because we need to make sure that it's in our permit conditions that the applicant is compliant with all federal, state, and county requirements.
Okay, so that's it. I mean, does that satisfy your concern and that it's in the permit language?
I mean, we're just trying to do the right thing. So if it doesn't hang us up, from a process standpoint, I'm fine.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions? Okay, now on to Suzanne.
I guess I do want to just confirm what N. Young was just saying. Maybe we can confirm with our AG that we don't need the FONSI in order to make this decision.
Brian? I don't know if Jody left, or are you gonna answer that? I see Jody in the audience too.
Yeah, I might bring her in, Jody Yee, Y-I.
Yeah, she's a panelist.
But just for my information, the environmental assessments was accepted, or the final EA was accepted?
The draft EA was accepted. It was published. Yeah.
But the final EA has not been accepted?
I think the FONSI has not been finalized.
And who finalizes the FONSI?
That would be the accepting authority. So that would be I think the Forest Service. They're the, if the 30-day comment period passed from January 2020 to February 2020, and there were no substantive comments that required a revision that needed to go back out for public comment, then the final will be published when it's submitted by the accepting authority in the environmental notice, along with the FONSI.
Anya, did you have your hand raised? You wanted to add to that?
I actually, Mary, have clarified something from you, so thank you.
Okay. Is that this description of the process by Mary Alice, is that sufficient? Or do you want us to ask Jody, our Deputy AG for Plant Quarantine Branch?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a concern actually if the final, my recollection is normally you could simply submit a finding of no significant impact in the beginning. And if that's what was submitted and the time period has lapsed, you're fine. If instead you submitted a draft EA and the draft EA was published, but the accepting authority still has not accepted the final EA, then frankly, I'm wondering why you were not waiting for that final EA to be completed first. So is there anyone from the Forest Service who would be the accepting authority available to answer?
It's Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, do you want to respond to the question?
I'm bringing him forward again.
Thanks.
Sorry, it takes a moment for me to get hooked back in as a panelist. The Forest Service is not actually the accepting authority for this state EA. This is a state-run process, and it's between DLNR and Department of Ag who decides to be accepting it. And I'm not totally clear. Where I thought we were, Chris, you might be able to correct me. I thought we were at this with, we completed a draft EA, and Rob, I see Rob's on, that's great. And we got the comments, but we have not submitted a final EA yet. I think that's where we are.
Can you address the concerns, Rob?
Well, I don't know if I can address the concerns, but I can give you a brief history on the environmental assessment that was that DLNR assisted with. And that's correct, the HDOA was to be the determining agency. And so we submitted the draft EA with all the public comments and all the documents to HDOA, who was going to issue the FONSI. And Plant Quarantine Branch was going to be the issuing agency. And Plant Quarantine Branch wanted to wait until it went out to the subcommittee on entomology, I believe, before they made the determination. So we're still waiting for the determination. And I'm not sure whether something has changed at HDOA, but it still hasn't been issued.
So if I understand it correctly, at least your understanding is DOA is the accepting authority?
That's correct. And we did meet with OEQC folks to go over who would be the most appropriate agency for the submitting agency and the determining agency. And they were fine with what we determined. HDOA was fine with what we determined. It just...
Okay, then that has to occur first. the environmental assessment must be accepted as final first before you can act on this action. So I'm sorry, I didn't realize DOA was the accepting authority and that they had not acted on this.
Okay, so we'll defer it because
Yes.
yeah, okay, yes.
There was another case in which DOA was not the accepting authority. It was actually another state agency that was the actor, not the accepting authority. And so DOA defers to the state agency that they have complied with the necessary requirements of Chapter 343 when they came to us. But in this case, DOA this is not a state action, it's a state acceptance. And DOA apparently is the accepting authority, not someone else. So if that's the case, then DOA has to first accept the final environmental assessment before it can take action.
Okay, so I'm going to defer this because the department, the branch has not accepted it. Do we need further discussion or okay, so I'll first go to Suzanne because she hasn't asked a question or comment on this, and then I'll go back to Jimmy. Do you have your hand raised again for a question? Okay, then I'll go back to Mary Alice. Okay, so go ahead, Suzanne.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear, and maybe Mary Alice can further comment on it, but is it something that the board has delegated to the staff at the staff level to accept the EA and issue a FONSI, or does that have to come back to the board? And again, I'm just trying to clarify it for the purposes of next steps. And if the board has delegated it or could, then I guess the staff would just finish that process and then this would come right back to the board. Or if the board hasn't delegated it, then that recommendation would be included in the next submittal, and the recommended action would be that the board accept it and issue a FONSI and then approve the action.
Because it's not in the agenda, it is not something that can be the EA or the delegation of the EA cannot be acted on.
No, I know. I'm just trying to think like next time.
Right, you could have done it, but I don't believe they have not generally delegated that authority. The board has not delegated that authority generally to the chair. So it would need to come back to the board either to accept the EA or to delegate the authority for acceptance to the chair. I mean, actually, if it was on the agenda, you could have done it today, but it's a matter, I think, of too great a significance to amend the agenda.
Mary Alice, did you have something to say, comment?
I was going to note that the for action has actions 3, 4, 5, and 6 as provisionary and only are made actionable if item number 2 is completed, so that I defer to our Deputy Attorney General as to whether that we could still act on 1 through 6, noting that 3, 4, 5, and 6 are provisional on completing number 2.
No, I think the draft EA has to be done first. It's the informational document upon which a board relies. So it has to have that document before it can make a decision.
I'd also like to say that it's not necessarily required that boards serve as the accepting agency for an applicant action. It can be the department director. So I don't know whether the Department of Agriculture's rules or bylaws or policies and procedures speak to that question, but it isn't necessarily that that a board would necessarily have to be the accepting authority.
We can take a look and see if there's any other basis by which the chair could do it. But it does have to be done first. And actually it could be done at the next board meeting simultaneously. So you could accept the EA as final. Oh, I have to double check on the publication. But
could the board right now delegate to the chair the authority to accept it?
because it's not on the agenda, I don't think.
Brian, I have a question. Could we just take action on number 1, preliminary review for future placement on the list of restricted Part A animals? Could we do that?
I suppose, I'm not sure you're going to save any time since you kind of need all of those to occur. So, you know, you could just defer the whole thing and then come back to do the whole thing.
Okay. Okay. So did Jody, did you want to comment? No? Okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so I think I can just defer it. And so we'll take it up at the next regular board meeting. Okay, sorry about that, board.
Sorry, staff.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Johnson. Okay, so moving on, thanks, Chris. Moving on to land vertebrate, can I get Noni Putman to come forward and do the presentation for the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins?
Good morning, or actually good afternoon, sorry, Chairperson and members of the Board of Agriculture. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Noni Putnam, and I'm the land vertebrate specialist for the Hawaii Department of Agriculture Plant Quarantine Branch. And I have the following requests to, 1, allow the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demersis, an animal on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa, and to update permit conditions for the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins, an animal on the list of restricted animals Part B for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa. Please refer to the first PQB note located on page C25, which states the PQB has previously approved import permits for the Hyatt Regency Maui on November 10, 1992 and December 1st, 1992 to import black-footed penguins and Magellanic penguins. The African black-footed penguins, Spheniscus demersis, are on the list of restricted animals Part B pursuant to the Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR Chapter 4-71. All species in the family Sphenicidae may be imported into Hawaii for government use or private and commercial use, including research, zoological parks, or aquaculture production. Please refer to the second PQB note located on the bottom of page C25, which states the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa has applied for a captive bred wildlife registration Endangered Species Act from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service on 11/10/2021. If this request is approved, PQB would attain any required license prior to the issuance of a import permit. Please also note that this morning, Ms. Pulvi Kursa sent me an email that she received from the U.S. Management Authority Branch of Permits, which states, thank you for your inquiry. Your application CS008236 that was received on November 10th, 2021 is currently under review. Please be aware that we have a significant number of applicants pending, and we process applications in the order that they are received in the office. The staff members working on your, the staff member working on your application has been notified of your inquiry. If there is a need for any additional information or clarification on information provided in your application, a staff member will be in contact with you directly. Thank you. U.S. Management Authority Branch of Permits of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Great. The project objective for the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa is to obtain 4 penguins of a different bloodline to ensure genetic vitality, as well as to obtain new penguins in order to comply with AZA's minimum population standard recommendation of 10 penguins for an animal enclosure of their size. All right. Please note that a post-entry inspection of the Hyatt was conducted on May 10th, 2022, and the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa has also provided a biosecurity manual for their file. Okay. If the members of the board could please turn to page C32 to go over the advisory subcommittee review. From the recommendations that I did receive, 4 of the advisory subcommittee members recommended approval to allow the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins, an animal on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa. Please note that Dr. McKinney stated in her comments, the birds are regulated under the Animal Welfare Act through Birds are regulated under the Animal Welfare Act. Though no standards have been set as yet, there is currently a proposed rule published in the Federal Register on bird standards. So in the future, these animals will be regulated and inspected by USDA. The estimated date of the final rule will be in place is February 2023, and the Hyatt will be required to have an active USDA license at that time. And then please also note that Dr. Reed stated that his approval is conditional on the importer providing definitive evidence that the penguins are free from internal and external parasites. Please refer to the comments provided by the advisory subcommittee members on pages C32 and C33. All right, if the members of the board could please turn to page C33 for the next PQB note, which states, refer to the attachments 8 and 9 for the published research papers provided for review by Dr. Reed, demonstrating the known risks for the species. Dr. Maeda, who's a state vet, was consulted on the information presented. Okay. For question number 2, located on the bottom of page C33, 4 of the advisory subcommittee members recommended approval. Recommended approval to update permit conditions for the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins, an animal on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for exhibition by the Hyatt Regency Maui Resort and Spa. Please refer to the comments provided by the advisory subcommittee members on pages C33 to C34. This request was further submitted to the advisory committee on plants and animals, or the advisory committee, at its meeting on May 20th, 2022 via a Zoom virtual meeting. After review of the advisory committee on plants and animals, the advisory committee members voted 6-0 to approve this request, contingent upon modifications of this permit conditions to reflect the creation of separate permit conditions for progeny, cleaning up of the language throughout the permit conditions in the use of progeny to indicate that progeny will be held to different standards than the imported articles, changes to permit conditions 12 to encompass even malaria testing, and the housekeeping areas that Mr. Eisen noted relating to the permit conditions. Mr. Matsui mentioned recording of the markings as opposed to banding if needed, and Mr. Hoff asked if the prophylactic treatment along with the testing was included. Mr. Oishi agreed. Committee member Matsui seconded the motion. Please refer to the comments provided by the advisory committee members on pages C34 to C40. The board members could please turn to page C40. These are the listed proposed import conditions. On page C41, import condition number 12, it states the restricted article shall comply with all pre-entry animal health requirements of the Animal Industry Division, Chapter 4-28, Hawaii Administrative Rules, and they have a number. Condition number 12 was amended as a result of the committee's discussion to clarify that progeny are not subject to the pre-entry Animal Industry Division requirements. Okay. Excuse me. For import condition 12A, it states imported restricted articles shall be accompanied by a poultry and bird import permit and a valid origin health certificate issued by Category 2 accredited veterinarian within 10 days prior to importation. The health certificate shall include a declaration indicating the restricted articles are free from diseases designated by the HDOA state veterinarian, free of external parasites, and a declaration indicating the restricted articles received a negative test for Newcastle disease and even influenza within 14 days prior to importation. Condition number 12A was amended as a result of the comments made by Dr. Maeda. He was consulted on the language of this condition as presented. For import condition 12B, this condition was inserted as a result of a comments and correspondence with Dr. Maeda. And as mentioned before, he was consulted on the language of the conditions as presented. For import condition 12C, it states prior to importation, restricted articles shall receive multiple negative polymerase chain reaction diagnostic tests for parasites from at least 3 blood samples collected several days apart and a prophylactic treatment with chloroquine and primaquine as approved by the state veterinarian. Condition number 12C was inserted as a result of comments and correspondence that were made by Dr. Reed, Robert Reed, and Mr. Hoff. Dr. Maeda was consulted on the language of this condition as presented. For import condition number 13, it states the restricted article shall be subject to importation by the HDOA, PQB, and the AID prior to entering the state. It is the responsibility of the permittee to provide any restraints, including chemical restraints, deemed necessary by the AID to conduct proper inspection. The permittee shall be responsible for ensuring an inspection is conducted. Condition number 13 was amended as a result of the committee's discussion to clarify that progeny are not subject to inspection prior to the entry into the state. For condition number 18A, B, C, D, and E, this condition was amended as a result of the committee's discussion to clarify that progeny are not subject to the inspection prior to entry into the state. Please refer to the staff recommendations located on page C46. Based off of the recommendations and comments of the advisory subcommittee on land vertebrates and recommendations to approve by the advisory committee on plants and animals, the PQE is recommending the board approve this request and establish permit conditions for this request. Thank you again for your time. This concludes my section of the request. Please note that Pobi Carissa Abney from the Hyatt is available to answer any of your questions as well as I am. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Noni. Board members, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mary Alice. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Fred Cowell. Okay, we're in discussion. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to testify on this item of the agenda? I see a hand raised.
There's a Kathy Gogel. I'm going to allow her to speak.
Sure.
Kathy, if you could please state your name and organization.
My name is Kathy Gogel. I'm president of Animal Rights Hawaii. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. It's been a very long meeting. I learned a lot. We are opposed to the hotels bringing in these penguins who are native to South Africa. They do not belong in Hawaii. They do not represent Hawaii. And more we are seeing in our island state that people who love Hawaii and want it represented by animals and plants that are Hawaiian. Even though these people have been involved in an SSP for 36 years, it's very commendable. However, animals are not ornaments to be shown in a lobby. And I believe that it is improper for this to continue. Notice the birds that used to be found in the Hilton Hawaiian Village on Oahu are no longer there. So I do ask, I know that it has nothing really to do with the safety of our agricultural system, but just think about the image that presents to people who are visiting us. We have plenty of wonderful things for our tourists to see that are not in captivity. Thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else from the public that wishes to testify?
There are no other hands raised.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for Noni Putman? James Gomes, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. I have to agree with the last testifier. I'm in favor. I mean, they've done their due diligence. They're going along at the right speed and coming up to par and what they need to do, all the requirements. That's all great. But I think for locally, you know, we should have something more native, you know, maybe some critical habitat with foliage and forage and maybe even some native birds if they can rear it for us and so forth. But at least you can walk away as you came to Hawaii and you learn something about Hawaii and how important it is. You know, penguins, we can go to a lot of zoos all over the United States and see them. And not saying that Hyatt is not a good steward of it, because they show that they've had a great track record in the past for 36 or 37 years of rearing these penguins and with offsprings and so forth. But what do you take back as a local person or as a tourist? I mean, as far as that is concerned, what did I learn when I was here in Hawaii, in Maui, for example? I looked at penguins. So I feel, for me, and this is my opinion, I'm against it. I vote against it. I'm opposing it, and that's my comment. Again, no intentions against what they want to do, because you guys have had a long process of doing it. I'm just against the overall concept of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Anyone else has a comment or a question? There is someone that raised their hand in Okay, so
Yes.
Kobe,
Povi, if you could please state your name and organization.
Certainly. My name is Povi Karsa Abney, and I'm the wildlife supervisor here at the Hyatt. And I just wanted to comment, I absolutely respect the last two speakers and their love for native animals. And it is something that we tie into our whole wildlife talk when we are doing wildlife tours. Basically, this is an opportunity for us to share an appreciation of animals all around the world and show how animals in South Africa and what we do here in Hawaii, how they can impact animals all around the world. We do really appreciate those comments, and we are making moves to include and appreciate more of our native animals as well. The African penguins, they're a very large part of our image, part of our family, and it is something that we can hope generations to come will be able to view them and appreciate them, and also see how they tie into our Hawaiian culture as well.
thank you very much for your testimony. I have other board members with their hand raised. So Diane? Okay, any other board members? Oh, Anya, go ahead.
I am exactly on the same page with Diane. This one is extremely hard one for me. And the reason for that is that we are here in Hawaii, and we really should support more promotion of Native Hawaiian plants and Native Hawaiian life and so on. So yeah, I also agree that the process was complete and it was, all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But again, this is extremely hard one for me, especially that I represent C.F.R here and University of Hawaii and University of Hawaii and C.F.R. We truly believe that we are Native Hawaiian place of learning, and we supportive, and this is not even education, it's entertainment. So this is tough one. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Suzanne, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, I have to just agree with the last three board members, I guess. It's a very hard one because, you know, process followed, but it, you know, where are we headed? And I think this is kind of an old direction, and it doesn't, it's just a strange thing to have here. And, you know, that combined with using exotic animals for entertainment, it's a hard one for me too. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Suzanne. I had a question either to Noni or to our board members on Maui. Is there a zoo on Maui?
From my knowledge, there's
No.
no zoo. There
No
used
zoo.
to be, but it closed.
No
down.
zoo.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, was there a zoo before, but it closed down? Is that what Noni said?
That's
Some of the-
correct.
Some of the activities here could be considered zoo-like, but now there's no zoo.
There's no zoo. Okay. Jimmy, you had something you wanted to add?
No, we just don't have a zoo, but you have animal refuge centers and so forth, yeah, throughout the island but we don't have a zoo anymore. We had one, but we don't have one.
Oh,
At this
okay.
point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, board members, any other questions, comments?
I think that Randy has his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Randy. Go ahead.
Chair, I just want to point out, I think it wasn't that long ago that we approved, I think it was the Swans for one of the hotels. And I don't see the difference between these two. So I'm having a hard time understanding why we approved that, and here we have a problem with this.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Any other questions? Okay. If none, then I'll call for the question, for the vote.
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted to say I am new to this board and I haven't received supportive documents, so I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Oh,
Since
okay.
I haven't received supporting documents, I was not able to review them.
Okay. Well, thank you for disclosing that. Anyone else before I call for the vote? Okay, so I am going to do a roll call. Okay. All those in favor to approve the request to allow the importation of 4 African black-footed penguins and to update permit conditions for the importation of those 4 African black-footed penguins. I'm going to do a roll call vote. So Diane Lay. Okay. Randy.
Aye.
Okay. Fred Howell.
Aye.
Okay. N Young.
No.
Okay. Jimmy Gomes.
No.
Okay. Vince Mina.
No.
Okay. Suzanne Case.
No.
Okay. Mary Alice Evans.
Yes.
Okay. Anya abstains, right? Okay. So.
That's correct.
Okay. Chair votes aye with reservations. I don't think we have enough votes for a action. I think we have 4 opposed, 5 ayes and ayes with reservations, and we have 1 abstention. So we don't have the 6 votes to take an action. Okay, so this this is not
Sorry,
approved.
Chair, what's the count required?
I think it's 6.
So that's a majority of.
I'll ask Brian. I'll ask Brian Yee. I thought we need 6.
That's
not,
correct.
Yeah, not super majority. We needed 6, and we only have 5 approve and approval reservations. We have 4 no's, objections, and 1 abstention. So we don't have the 6 votes to take an action. So is the option that they can never come back and apply, or they come back and apply with a different approach?
Can I just suggest something? The reason why I abstain because I have not received the documents and I would like to review them. So if we can postpone this or kind of refer to the next meeting, and if I receive the documents, I can review them and then vote.
Okay, so you're asking to amend the motion. Can she do that, Brian, after we took the vote?
No, but I think what happens is the vote does not pass. It isn't, what's hard is it isn't per se denied, but it's also not granted.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what would make sense to me is at this point, the matter's tabled with no resolution. And we can maybe come back to this at another time. But the problem, of course, is there wasn't, a clear position, but it is not granted. So to the extent that they want to move forward with anything, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. Okay, so it's tabled. They can come back and request again later.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That was the last item on the agenda. It's 1:04. We have no old business, no new business. So thank you, Noni. And do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? So moved by Anya and second by Jimmy Gomes. And wow, Anya and Jimmy, your first meeting, and you moved to adjourn. Well, welcome on board, and
Well,
thank
it's been
you.
2 years we've been going.
Well, we didn't break the record. I think we've had longer board meetings. So anyway, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you again at the next regular meeting, and we'll follow up and get you the attachments, Anya.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
you.
everyone, and aloha.
Bye.
Hey, Chair, this is
Oh,
Fred.
no one opposed, right, to adjourn? Okay. Okay.
Just a quick comment for you,
Yes.
Chair. Chastity has reopened the reservations for the event on Thursday night if you would like to apply.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I use the same link?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, here's mine.